Hi there, this is Kaushik Ranchod. Welcome friends to our weekly immigration show. Today we are going to be talking about a case study for a J1 waiver, exceptional hardship waiver with Department of State funding. This is one of our latest approvals, so you'll see the processing times, how long it's taking, what work. If you haven't already, smash the like button because it helps people like you be able to have these videos show up, and it helps with that YouTube algorithm. Now, on to it. So first of all, let's talk about the J1 exceptional hardship waiver. There's a variety of J1 waivers out there. There's the J1 no objection waiver, the J1 IGA, interested government agency waiver. Within that, there's Conrad 30 waivers, there's VA, HHS, for instance. This is specifically to the J1 exceptional hardship waiver. The reason that many of you might want to consider this is because if you're a physician, for instance, you're not going to be subjected to working at an employer for 3 years like you would if you were on a Conrad 30 waiver. Another reason is you might not be eligible for the no objection waiver. You might have U.S. government financing where it's most likely going to cause you to have a denial with your no objection waiver. So those are some reasons that the J1 exceptional hardship waiver is a good option. Well, that might be great, but you might be wondering, well, how do I qualify? Well, let's look at the basic requirements. You need to have a qualifying relative. So you need to have a U.S. citizen spouse, lawful permanent resident spouse, or a U.S. citizen child or lawful permanent resident child. Now, what's also important to note is that this does not get rid of unlawful presence. So for instance, if you've overstayed, you're not going to be able to get rid of the unlawful presence issue if you're subjected to a 3-year bar if you overstayed for more than 180 days, or 10-year bar if you've overstayed for more than a year and you've left, you'd be subjected to those bars. Now, if you have an immediate relative application, that may not be an issue, but it's important to know that the J1 exceptional hardship waiver is limited in what it does. It gets rid of the 2-year home residency requirement. It doesn't provide you work authorization. It is not the tooth fairy, but it does create a cure for you for that J1 disease, which is having to go back for 2 years. So it is very powerful, but it is not the one and cure all. And I think sometimes people are not aware of that. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Now, let's talk about the process. So normally what we do is we file the DS-3035 simultaneously with the I-612 with USCIS. And we like to prepare a very detailed legal brief, making an argument as to why you have exceptional hardship, making sure you have the appropriate documentation that's unique to your situation that supports the argument. It's very important that you do this thoroughly, because a lot of times I see mistakes where people just do a very simple statement and that's not enough. And sometimes we have to clean up those messes, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this case study. What were some of the arguments that were used? Let's continue with the process. So file it with USCIS, and USCIS then will send it over to Department of State. Department of State will issue a favorable recommendation, also request sponsor views in the case of U.S. government funding, and then send it back to USCIS for final approval. That's when you can file for a marriage-based green card if you're married to a spouse who's a US citizen, or apply for employment-based green card, H-1B, visa. That's the process. So let's look at what happened with our most recent case. This will give you an idea of what the processing times are like. And this one, to keep in mind, this is with US government funding. So this case took longer because of the fact that there is US government funding involved. So if you have US government funding, for instance, if you're a Fulbright scholar, then expect your case to take longer than a normal J1 waiver case. Here, our client was an Egyptian national. We filed the case on February 2020, and then a request for evidence was issued on April 2020. We responded June of 2020. The I-163 was sent by USCIS to the Department of State on October 7th, 2020. It took Department of State 12 days to receive the I-613. So they received that on October 19th, 2020. On February 2022, Department of State requested sponsor views. Sponsor views were received April of 2022. Finally, a favorable recommendation was issued June 2022. And then the big celebration, woohoo! June 27th, 2022, USCIS approved the case. So you can see this was a long process. Another thing that increased the time here was the request for the sponsor reviews. You'll see Department of State is extremely backlogged right now, and they're the ones that are slowing it down. So Department of State took a long time. Plus, in this case, their RFE was issued. So those were some of the reasons that this case took a long time. The next question is, well, what about proving exceptional hardship? So here, the hardship was based off of hardship to a qualifying U.S. citizen child. With this case, since the client was in Egypt, we made a lot of exceptional hardship arguments based off of country conditions. So for instance, some of the country conditions that are not up to par in Egypt are air quality. The pollution is extremely high. Access to education. There's terrorism in Egypt. Those are some of examples of the country conditions that exist, and we based the primary arguments of our case primarily off of country conditions and how those country conditions would affect that U.S. citizen child. We were able to get the case successfully approved. Of course, every case is unique, so we like to look at the unique factor to the qualifying relative as well. That's why I invite you to connect with us to learn more about whether or not you may qualify for an exceptional hardship waiver. And you can reach out to us at 916-613-3553. Put your comments below. You can ask your questions there. If you have a topic that you'd like to talk about, put that below too. I want to thank you for tuning in to watching this video. Just by taking the time to better yourself, that makes you truly an amazing person, because by bettering yourself, you're bettering your family. And by bettering your family, you're bettering our country. Thank you. Bye for now.